everybody in the land of the internet. It's been a hot minute since we've had a chance to get together. Uh, Everybody, thanks for joining us tonight, and everybody who watches us in the future, and everybody listening. Appreciate you being here, especially in the crazy days we seem to be having in this world. So, we're going to take a little time out and have some fun tonight, but we're going to be doing some deep diving as well. So I'm not going to chat too long because we have a guest who has done literally decades of deep diving into this Bigfoot Nephilim connection, and also probably the only surviving person, as I remember him saying, of being slapped in the head by Bigfoot. So without further ado, we're going to bring out Mr. David Walker.
Yes. Hello, hello, hello. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, we hanging in as always.
Good deal. So we're going to be deep diving tonight, huh? How long have you been looking into this aspect of the Bigfoot?
Oh, well, that's a good question because my experience was in 1972. But, lately, just in the last 5 years, I've really been kind of tromping the fields and doing a lot of research and writing a book or two. So, yeah. But my first sighting was back in 72. There seemed to be a lot of stuff going on in 72 for some reason.
Yeah, I would have been a whopping 2 years old. I mean, 72 was a great year for cars. I had a 72 Chevelle that was amazing. So,
But I guess somebody's wet behind the ears, I guess.
so do you want to share with us for the? I always get the two shows mixed up. I know you. We really want to get your stuff out there. If you want to talk about your first experience,
Yeah.
we can do that. You can
Yeah.
point
I
them to
think
the
I
show.
will, Brian, because my first experience will lead me into the reason why I wrote the book, and that's we can begin, to lay some groundwork for part two. We'll put it that way.
That sounds great. So I'm going to let you just have at it then.
Okay. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, which probably everybody listening, I was 11 years old in 1972, and my friend and I would just get ready to camp out. That weekend school had just let up for the summer. And we got our stuff around and went behind the barns, made a fire back there. And we kind of got turned around and was talking, not really paying attention to the fire. And I guess it kind of got away from us. So we had to rip our shirts off and start, stroking the fire because they got 3 or 4 feet out of the fire ring there. And we made a bunch of smoke. We were kids. It was our first time camping out, you know what I'm saying? So we learned a lot in that process. So the whole valley is filled up with smoke. And I said, well, we ain't going to see that deer. We was trying to see it in the morning when we woke up, real early to see if we could see that big buck out there walking around. So that kind of shut that out. See, well, we can still camp out this place up on top of the hill. Man, I tell you what, we can sleep for miles up there and, we'd be all alone. Yeah, that's what we wanted because, we were kids and the purpose of camping out was to get away from our parents. So we went ahead, carried our stuff off that hill, but, it was probably about 70 degrees, I'm guessing, 72. And, the bugs were starting to come out because it was early part of summer. And I tell you what, time I got to the top of that hill, man, we were sweating. We sat down, took about a half-hour break, got our stuff around. He started setting up a tent. I went and gathered some more firewood. And long story short, about all right around 8:30, quarter to 9, it was just starting to get dusk, not dark, but just dusk. We got everything pretty well set up and started eating our hot dogs and hamburgers. And about around 11:30, I'm kind of reeling by real fast, so I don't have to spend too much time on this. But we'll get to the good part. Around 11:30, we turned in, and as kids do, we told some more stories, jokes, whatever. We're laying on our sleeping bags, and about right around 1 o'clock, we turned into the sleeping bags, just got comfy and closed my eyes. About 15 minutes into it, while I started hearing some snaps, some twigs break around the tent. And the tent was an old army tent. You couldn't see through it during the day. real dark green, kind. And well, as the sticks begin to break, well, I thought, oh, I know what that is. That's probably some raccoons and varmints. We probably left some food scraps right on the ground. No problem. Turned over, went back, started to go back to sleep. Snap, 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 snap. And it was like right outside the tent, like someone was standing out there, but I already knew that couldn't be because we were way, way away from town, clear up on top of a hill, God-forsaken place. Nobody's going to be up there. Neighbors are like about a mile away. So we really didn't expect anybody up there. But somebody had some different plans. But anyhow, the only one that knew we was anywhere around that area was his brother. I'll just call his name exactly what it is, Steve. Steve's brother was the only one that knew where we was in the general vicinity. He thought we were behind the barn. Here we were clear up on top of the hill, and we never told him or anybody any different. So for somebody to guess where we were at camping, they would have had to have been watching the fire on top of the hill. Yeah, it's a possibility, but them people around that place, they all kept to themselves. You never hardly seen anybody during the day, let alone at night. We wasn't worried, you know what I'm saying? Well, anyhow, as we're in that tent, we're hearing these sticks break. We're looking at each other, and we're, kind of going, what's going on, man? Who could that be? And all of a sudden, as we're looking at each other, we hear this deep, guttural breathing, like, and I mean, we're freaking out. We're 11, 12 years old. I think he might have been 12. I was 11 and totally freaked out. I'm like, dude, I said, if that's your brother out there, because he said it might be my brother. I said, if that's your brother, he sure is making some deep sound noises. He's doing a good job of trying to scare us. He goes, well, maybe I don't know why he like that. Pretty soon, boom! A slap came down on the tent like a fist, and it hit my friend Steve right in the head. He goes, "Ow, man, that hurt!" No laughter, no response at all. So I ducked my head down on the ground, man. I hope he don't get me. Just as I'm picking out, boom, a fist come down and it punched the other side of the tent and it hit me in the head. So that's why I said I may be the only person that's ever got hit in the head by Bigfoot, maybe lived to tell about it. That's why I made that comment. Whether I am or not, I don't know. I'm just guessing on that one. But anyhow, to continue the story, since it hit us in the head, he goes, man, that has to be him out there. He said, let's both roll out and scare him. I go, oh, okay. Because, brothers are always pulling pranks on each other. He goes, 1, 2, 3. Thinking it was his brother standing on the other side of that tent, I unzipped it, jumped out, jumped up in the air with both my arms, and I go, ah. Here I am, a mere mortal human, trying to scare this big, tall, strong. To me, it was a monster. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. I'd never heard tell of it before. All I knew was that was a monster standing in front of me. And I had to look up to see his head. I took a couple of steps back, and when I did, he took off running. He ran across the ridge. He ran past the fire. I could see the hair on his legs, and I could see like muscles left. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. And not one time did I ever stop and think, oh, I bet you that's the guy in a Bigfoot. No. This was a huge guy, and he took off like lightning. And he didn't trip. He didn't falter. He ran. Why he was running from us, that's the part I've never been able to figure out, because he could have buried us where we stood.
Yeah.
He could have buried us. Well, my friend stayed in the tent, and he goes, oh, my God, Dave, he goes, that was Bigfoot. I go, Bigfoot? Is that what that is? He goes, yeah, man, here. He sent me a flashlight. I got it. He took his, crawled out of the tent, and camping was over for the night. We were running down over the hill. Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever. He had across into the darkness. So we're booking it. I can barely see. I mean, I don't know how I got down over that hill without getting all scratched. I got scratched up, but I got down there and he jumped over the fence by the barn. I couldn't see it. I ran right into it, flopped over, dropped the flashlight, and went rolling down the hill. I got my foot caught in the fence. And so my first thought is, oh my God, if Bigfoot turned around and he ran back after us, he's going to grab a hold of me. And man, I'm freaking out. I'm pulling. He goes, come on, man. Because we ain't no time to play around. I'm thinking to myself, no joke, dude. I can't get my foot out. So finally, I just yanked real hard. I pulled my foot out of my boot. And then I ran back to the house, one barefoot and one, well, in my foot or my shoe and on the other one. And so we got to the door and his sister let us in. And she goes, oh, a couple with a boy, afraid of the dark. I goes, afraid of the dark, my hind end. I said, that's Bigfoot on top of the hill, and he smashed it on top of the head. Oh, she just roared. She got that booze for my dad, didn't you? You took some of that up there with you. I mean, because it does. It sounds like a couple of kids just got into your wine, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, we couldn't convince her, and so the brother that we thought, was actually the culprit, or whatever. He come run downstairs in his pajamas, so we knew he wasn't the one up there. And if he wasn't up there, then who was? So that eliminated, in my mind, any remote hoax of somebody trying to scare us. Who's going to get a Bigfoot suit that looks genuine in 1972 in Newcomertown, Ohio, and be on top of a hill at 1:30 in the morning just to scare a couple of boys and have a few laughs? No, that's not going to happen. So what we saw up there was the real deal. So anyhow, again, making the story short, in the morning, his dad come to the table and said, hey, I heard you guys had a run-in with the Bigfoot last night. I said, yeah, we did. He ain't gonna hurt nobody. So we seen him down there at the barn about 6 months ago. He said, we had the calves out there, making a lot of noise. I thought the neighbors were trying to steal one of my calves. So I grabbed the gun off the wall, went out there to see what was going on. And we just opened up the door, walk a couple steps, we're looking around. Pretty soon I seen something run out the back. He said, look up, I saw a big, tall, hairy monster running out the back of the barn. He goes, I put my gun up, but he said he was too fast. I couldn't even get a shot at him. He said, boys, I'll tell you what, y'all finish your breakfast. We're gonna go up there and get your tent and stuff, your bag, sleeping bags, and I'm gonna look around for tracks. Okay, So we did, and he walked up to the thing, but there's one right there. There's about 15, 16-inch track, but it had 3 big toes in the front of him, not 5 like a human, 3 big toes with looked like it had a claw at the end of it because it was very sharp down into the earth. And it was about 1.5 inches down into the ground. Well, when we walked across the same ground, we barely made a mark with our shoes. So that just goes to tell you, whatever it was, at one particular point, it weighed a lot of, it must have weighed, looked like it weighed 700 pounds. He thought 700, 800 pounds. He goes, that's a big fella. Yeah, probably the same one back here at the barn, probably. I'm thinking, yeah, it was. Okay. He said, well, let's follow, see where he went. Okay. So he's right behind us, and my friend Steve is behind him. So I'm leading the way. We follow the track that across the ridge. I counted about a dozen. And then there should have been plenty more. They just stopped. No trees around, nowhere for that thing to go. And I said, I can't find the next footprint. Dave, you wouldn't make a very good tracker. You can't even follow a 700-pound creature across there. Hey, let me get up there and find him. He went up there and he didn't find any. He goes, what? He kneeled down at the last track and he goes, well, I've been hunting these woods since I was knee high. I ain't never seen nothing like this. The one thing I do know, tracks don't lie. You boys seen something up here, that's for sure. I'm thinking, yeah, no dope, dude. anybody gonna believe our story, And so he said, well, all tracks, he said, they tell a story. And looked at me and I go, well, what story do you make out of this? Because the track stopped. So what story? And he kind of shook his head like, Dave, I don't know. And that's all he did. He just shook his head. And for the last 45, 50 years of my life, up until about, here recently, I'm like, okay, I agree with what he said. Tracks tell a story, but if that's the case, we got to answer a question first. Where did that thing go at the last track? It just didn't up and disappear. Come on now.
No.
But the funny part about that is, Brian, that's the only conclusion one can come to. Because where are the tracks? I'm a deer hunter. I've hunted several deer hunting. I've hunted a bear. I've hunted a mountain lion. No, I didn't hunt elk. Of course, rabbits and stuff like that down here in Ohio. But I know tracks. And you're gonna find either, or they get grass where you just can't see them no more. But this was open logging road dirt. They would have been there. I guarantee you, you're not going to miss a 700, 800-pound creature.
Yeah.
But they just weren't there. So,
Did you
what
see
would you say?
right,
Given that question, what would you say?
did you see left and right prints?
Yes.
And they both had three toes?
Yes.
See, that's what gets me is, if anybody's going to doubt your story, why would you make up a three-toed Bigfoot? Especially back in 1972.
I just tell the story as it happened, and who believes what, or they don't believe it, that's up to them. Everybody has their own, they can do what they want to, but all I'm saying is, I'm just like a reporter. I just tell what I observe. That's all I can do.
Yeah, and I mean, your story and I always get these two shows confused. Was it These Woods Were Haunted or Terror in the Woods?
Yeah, both of them. They had them on both. They had my show on both of those segments, Terror in the Woods and These Woods Are Haunted. Season 2, episode 9. Underneath its eyes were pure black. Did you say you seen that one?
I did, and I mistook you for somebody because I've been wanting to talk to you since I saw that show, like years ago when it first aired. I don't know why I can't remember them showing your name, and I thought you were Randy Harrington. So it was like that. Your story, especially the part because of the fact that you went camping, and then when you came back, and I think the way they worded it was when you were at the breakfast table, they said he's back. And then that was when the dad went out and told you found out that they had a counter before and didn't tell you.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you didn't tell us? You didn't tell me this thing was out here? That was 6 months ago. I thought that was long gone, Sometimes when I tell the story, Brian, I may leave that a part or two. Because I've told this thing, I probably, here in the last year or two, I probably told it about 200 times. So, no, I don't tell word for word.
No. Not only that, but I mean, because when I saw mine, it changed my life. But it sounds like you really were able to deep dive and just so everybody knows, we're doing a 2-part show, folks. So, real quick, I want to say hi to Amy and Michelle, and this is going to be a 2-parter, folks, because David's really, from what I understand, got a lot to say, and he's been nice enough to come on. So we're going to make sure he gets the word out there on what his research has discovered. So I guess that's where we're going next is, where did you start and what direction did it take you after that?
Well, being that I couldn't, we couldn't find where that thing went, and the only apparent logical solution I could think of is that it disappeared. went to another dimension. But what happened was, to lead me to my next book, is the fact that I started, researching. Well, I heard the Indians were seeing a lot about this thing, and accordingly, it was almost like their friend. I'm like, so I started looking at the Indian tales, the Indian legends, the oral traditions or legends, and so come to find out, all of them believed in the supernatural aspect of the creature. Now, as soon as I say supernatural, I'm going to lose about 60 to 70% of my audience right there.
The woo factor.
Oh, now you know better than that. Why do you know it? No, I don't know. Do you?
Yeah.
That's the thing. No, I don't know. And can you say of a certainty, of a 100% certainty, it's not related to the supernatural?
No,
I don't know. Maybe
I don't
some
know how
can.
anybody can draw a line in the sand.
Maybe some can, but probably most can't say, well, I can't say for certain. Well, then if you can't say for certain, at least entertain the idea. That's my thought. Entertain the idea. And if we do, where would I go? I wanted to write a book about this for 40, 45, 50 years, Brian. I didn't know where to begin. And I even asked God, I said, hey, I'd like to write a book about this. I think if I did, I'd probably be able to sell a lot of copies. I never did. That was probably the wrong motive, though. You know what I'm saying? Years and years, I just couldn't figure it out. Finally, one day, the light bulb come on. I'm like, in Genesis, where it talks about sin giants, there has to be something in there. So I went to Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, and I began to study that. And when I did, it just like the Spirit of God led me from that to this over here, to the apocryphal book, the book of Enoch, to the book of Giants, to the book of Jasher, to some other people's books that they wrote about the subject of the giants. We're talking L.A. Marzulli. And this one guy, his first name is Jesse. I can't think of his last name now, but this guy really talked about a lot about the giants. And when he did, he said some stuff in there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I never knew that. That ties right in with everything. And so as I started connecting the dots in my research, the book, I started forming the chapters. And I'm going to tell you what, they just knocked it. Let me just read a few of the chapters to our readers here, and they'll think that, hey, this might be worth looking into. So I named my part, 4 parts to the book. I named my part living in the days of Noah. And I thought that was a real good title for what I was getting ready to say. So the first chapter is called the Genesis chapter 6 Mystery Revealed. The sons of God / angels that sinned. Chapter 2, and then I want to cut it off right here, and I'll go back to chapter 1, and now I'll be able to give the people a little bit of a background where we're coming from. In chapter 2, Judgment of the Nephilim, the flood of Noah. So just those 2 chapters, I'm just going to kind of stop it right there. I just feel led to, not stop the whole podcast, but I mean stop my thought line. That Genesis chapter 6 mystery revealed. When I say mystery, people will look at the verses of scripture that I'm about to read to you, and they'll get 2 or 3 thoughts out of that. So we're going to go ahead and quickly read that. And when I do, just like I said, have an open mind and try to follow along with me. I'll try to make this as simple as I can. Like I said, I'm not trying to go above anybody's head. Verses 1 to 4 of Genesis 6. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Now, stopping right there, remember, here are 2 different classifications of beings. One's just called the sons of God. In the Hebrew, that the Benai Ha Elohim. Again, it means what it says, the sons of God. Saul, the daughters of men. Now that classifies the daughters of Adam, the beautiful woman on Adam's side. That they were fair. Again, that's beautiful. And they took unto them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, for his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth. Now, this is the key scripture. There were giants, and I capitalized that. The word for giant in the Hebrew is there were Nephilim on the earth in those days. And then it says, and also after that. Now, there's a big question mark there, but we'll get back to that one. When the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. So, if I would look at verse 4 and I read that, is it possible that these men of old and men of renown, meaning men of great reputation and honor and, just powerful men whose stories never faded throughout the century, could they actually be talking about the Greek gods and the Roman gods and like Zeus and Atlas and Hercules and some of these men? Could they be these men of old, these men of renown? Is that possibility? And I do think that it is, and I could go on. I never was good at mythology, I'll be honest with you. But being I'm writing this book, I had to really do some research into it myself. And so everything clicked. I mean, everything clicked on that route. And getting back to these two classifications of people, the sons of God, some people read that to mean, well, that could mean maybe the daughters of Seth. Seth actually, Eve had Seth to replace Abel, whom Cain slew. So a lot of your more liberal Christians say, yeah, that's probably what it is. That's all that it is. But if that's the case, then a lot of things in the Bible do not make any sense at all. But if we go with the angel view, everything it says in the apocryphal books lines perfectly, lines straight up. I mean, dot by dot, the dots are all connected. The rabbis of Jesus' day and the Sanhedrin even, and what they call the Essenes, another religious group of Jesus' day, they all believed that the book of Enoch, when it talked about these sons of God, every single last one of them believed talking about angels. And if you even go over that, you find places in the book of Job, and Job is the oldest book of the Bible. It's like it was the first one. It was even written before the Torah, and the Jewish people regard the Torah as word for word, verbatim, because it was out of the mouth of God given to Moses. And Moses obviously wrote it down just as God gave it to him. So the Torah, they really highly respect the Torah because they know that on top of that mountain, when their forefathers were up there, well, they weren't on the mountain, but they were around the mountain at that time. Moses went up to the mountain. He received that fire, that mountain burned with fire, and God actually came down on that mountain because the Bible says that God is a consuming fire. He gave the law to Moses, and when Moses brought it back down, what were the people doing? Well, the people were the golden calf, and they were dancing around there and worshiping the golden calf. And the very first commandment was, coincidentally, thou shalt have no other God before me. So they broke the first commandment. That's the first thing Moses told him. And so he got mad, of course, took the tablets and threw them, broke them. So what did he have to do? He went back up on the hill for another 40 days and received a second set of them. He comes back down. his face shone just brilliant. He had to put a veil on his face because he was in the very presence of God himself. And so it was a whole supernatural thing. Now, these sons of God, like I said, they are really angels. We can look at both sides of that, but I'm not going to. I would say 80 to 85-ish% of the whole entire religious world kind of adhere to that particular belief. So I'm not going to worry about the other 15% right now. But just for the sake of our listeners, we're going to refer to them as angels because they really are. And all my years of study, that's what I got too. Well, anyhow, so there's good angels and there's bad angels. And some people say, well, if they were angels, then how could they have sexual relations with women? Very good question. They said, well, Jesus even said that, that when we go to heaven, we're going to be like the angels. We're not going to, have sex to bear children or anything. So how can where do you get this? They're going to, they can have sexual relations with women. And here's the thing, I believe, Brian, it's just like, I don't know if you ever see, here's a good illustration to help you understand it a little bit. You ever see that Superman show and Superman goes into that chamber and he used that little, I don't know, emblem or image, kind of a coin, and he puts it in there and he seals it and he can, he became mortal. It changed him. But once he became changed, immortal, he couldn't go back. He eventually, because of his father, was able to, because his father could, he was the only one that could reverse it. So he said he wouldn't, but he eventually did. But it's just like that. I believe that once these angels were all holy at one time, they were all holy. But when man sinned in the Garden of Eden, then everything changed, He lost his man lost his immortality, and he also lost rulership of the world. So at this particular time, God, he pronounced a judgment on even the serpent, because the serpent was involved too. He got it on Eve. He said, because you took the bite of the apple or whatever it was, you're going to bear children. And Adam, because you listened to the voice of your wife and you ate of the apple too, through the sweat of your brow, you're going to have to toil of the ground. Boy, you're going to have to work for a living. And then he looked at the serpent and he said, and you're going to have to eat the very dust of the ground. And he said, because you have done this, everything is going to be cursed. And you will be cursed. And he said, and I will put enmity, hatred, strife, maybe even some jealousy in there, I don't know. I'll put enmity between you and the woman who you deceived, and between your seed and her seed. He said, oh, the devil didn't have, the serpent, he didn't have no kids. Hold on to that thought. And the seed of the woman was Eve. She would eventually, as we know, bear the Messiah through her lineage. She would bear the Messiah, who would, as he said, continuing with the curse, he said, and the seed of the woman will crush your head, but you will be able to hurt his heel. So they're both going to be able to strike at one another. However, the seed of the woman is going to destroy the serpent. And once God tells you how the outcome is going to be, honey, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you know. I don't care how much money you got. You ain't going to change it. It's a done, sealed deal. See what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And he told the serpent, you're going to lose, boy. You will lose. But he said, your seed will be able to hurt the woman's seed. So there's always going to be a strife. There's going to be a war between these seeds. And so I always thought for a long time when I read that, who is the seed? I know who the seed of the woman is. That's Jesus. But who's the seed of the serpent? I could never when I was a kid reading that. I couldn't figure that out. Oh well, some things we just can't figure out. But through the process of time and being in store with different Bible studies and reading some commentaries on the Bible and the books and stuff, come to find out here the seed of the serpent would be those angels that had originally fallen with him. Even if you read in the book of Revelation where the dragon takes his tail and he gets a third of the stars of heaven. Well, the stars of heaven, yeah, they are represented by little twinkling stars up there, but they're also a symbolism of the real brightness and the glory of the angels. So stars also represent angels in the Bible. You follow me? So he takes a third of those stars with him. And it's really a long process. And if I had you sit down at the table, me and you would spend 2 or 3 hours, and I could explain it to you real easy. But then we're on this podcast. I got to try to simplify and still move on, as quick as I can. But I see your face, and I look like you got some questions for me.
Yeah. We got one from Amy WC, and I think this is coming up, so I put in the next chat down, but I think she's talking about angels that were being naughty. So were they able to shift into solid form like a Bigfoot then?
Oh,
the answer's coming.
So she's trying to make a real quick connection on it.
I think that's coming up, right?
Yes, that's coming up in my analogy. Actually, that's going to be said more in part 2. She's kind of getting ahead of me. But yeah, angels, when you read a little bit about them and you get a background of the angels, they're just not all fair skinned like you and I. There's angels that look like a lion. There's even an angel that resembles a bear. One that has the face of a man and one that has the face of an eagle. So
Really?
they have hair on their bodies. And so when they did produce these Nephilim or giants, I imagine a lot of them were some very hairy dudes too. We're not told exactly what the giants look like when the angels fathered them through the human woman. So that's anybody's guess. You can again, it's your own opinion there. But I think that there were probably some hairy ones. But that doesn't have to even necessarily be in order for the Bigfoot and the Dog Man and Mothman and all these other creatures to come. That doesn't necessarily mean, I don't have to put hair on the angels, is what I'm trying to say. There's other ways they could have easily came about through the Nephilim lineage, through these supernatural fathers whom I'm calling the angels. I don't know if that helps her or not. If you had any other questions there, or if you got some yourself?
I was wondering when I always try to think about YouTube friendly, so I don't get in trouble. So when the angels were being naughty, we'll say, and partaking, do you think they assumed a form that was pleasing to the woman because maybe there wasn't enough wine to get them that drunk, or?
I never thought anybody would pose a question to me like that. That's comical, but I understand where you're coming from. If they weren't attractive to the woman, why would they want to get with these overly sized beasts that have wings on them, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, this is it. Here's the thing, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I think because of the question that you asked, it's necessary. These supernatural beings were able to do a lot of different things. Yes, they could fly. Of course, they could fly. They were very, very strong. I mean, and we'll get into that. We're architecture today, huge 100-ton blocks that were moved over 40 miles away from quarries. And then when they cut them, they cut so fine, you couldn't even put a piece of paper in between them. So these things not only had supernatural strength, they had intelligence that borders, as we would say, the supernatural. We don't even have the technology today to do what they did way back about 5,000 or so years ago when all this happened. So I don't know if they could disappear or not. I know that some of these cryptids today possess that power, because how many people have you heard of that brought in the Bigfoot for the scientists to look at? We're still looking for one, right? As far as we know, I don't know if the government has anything or what, I'm not going to go that route. But as far as the normal general people goes, no one has ever done that. There were some people that tried, or they faked it, like Rick Dyer. You probably heard of him, out of Georgia. Him and his buddy, they tried to take it 2 different times in the space of about 5 years, and just for monetary reasons. So, why would you do that? I'm after the truth. I'm after the 100% truth, and that's why I've done so much digging into this subject. I don't want just to say something just so someone can say, look, he wrote a book, man, he knows a lot. No, that's crazy. I want to get down to the root and the truth of the matter. And am I right on everything I say? Of course not. I don't think anybody is. However, the things that I've said in my book, it's called Supernatural Cryptids, Return of the Nephilim. The things that I say in there, I'm not really making statements. I'm just asking questions, and you answer the questions however you want. But then they will lead you to another point, and then I'll say what I think will be the general logical answer, and then we'll look at evidence. Is there any evidence to back that up? And then I'll go on to the next question, and I'll produce some more evidence. That's how my book is orchestrated. And I think it's very easy for people to read through that and say, okay, now I can see where he's coming from, you say. So it's just not me developing my own opinion. I'm being right because the Bible says so. No, that's not that at all. I'm just studying it right along with everybody else.
And that's why I like talking to you, because the fact that you state what you think is the truth. You're not out for the attention. You waited on the book to do it for the right reasons. And the fact that if you don't know, you just blatantly say, hey, you know what? I don't know. And you're also open to the fact that maybe something that comes along that changes your mind, I love talking to people who are open-minded. And you talk with people. You don't talk at them or down them. You talk with them, which is so refreshing in the world these days.
Most definitely. And again, throwing it back to where we just let off. Like I said, it is so deep with a lot of different things. But I talked about how the angels could have transformed from their original body, because it says in the New Testament, and I'll go and I'll read that to you here just in a second. I'm right there. I just flip right to it. It says in the New Testament that these angels sinned. They left their first estate. Matter of fact, says in Jude, let me find where it says, the angels, here it is. In Jude, verses 6 and 7, that's the little tiny book before Revelation. It says, and the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, that means dwelling in heaven, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness until the judgment of the great day. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities round about them in like manner, who gave themselves over to fornication and went after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Now that's a mouthful. That's you don't want to be in that position. I'm telling you. But that's what God did to these angels that went down there, and instead of when they seen man in their fallen state. Now the first 4 angels that went down when Adam and Eve sinned, they were the ones that guarded the tree of life. Remember, each one stood there north, south, east, and west with a flaming sword to guard that tree of life. And we know that in the garden. Here's the point. this is powerful. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but when I thought about it today, as I was studying for this podcast, when I thought about this, I had chills all over my body. But these four angels that were there was four rivers, and there's four angels, four directions in the garden, and they're trying to keep Adam. It's an act of mercy, because had Adam went back to that tree of life and ate from it after he would have sinned, he would forever live forever in his sinful state, and he would have had to suffer for his sins eternally, just like people that don't believe the Lord, have to suffer eternally. So with Adam, but God kept him from that tree so that he wouldn't be in that state. But now here's these four angels, and they're there. Now it says in the book of Revelation that at one particular point he will loose the four angels that are bound in the river Euphrates, and they will go out and they're going to perform a judgment act, perform some type of a wrathful act of God towards sinful humanity during the Great Tribulation period, right before Jesus comes back. And I wondered, where did those angels ever go that had that flaming sword and stood there around about that tree of life? Where did they ever go? Did they just go back up to heaven? If they did, we are not told. And that could very well be. Don't get me wrong. They could have just went back up after their job was done and whatever. But something just tells me that may have taken a while. And could that be? Could they be? See, there's the question. I don't know. But could they be the same angels that are let loose in Revelation? Are they still there to this very moment, guarding the real tree of life?
Yeah, I mean,
Woo! Huh? Is it possible?
I have to, and that's why I really didn't. I wanted to come into this as a newbie because I believe in Jesus, I believe in God, heaven, hell, whole nine yards. Have never totally read the Bible, so some of this I figured this way I'd be able to ask some questions people wouldn't. Because like to hear about the tree of life and the four angels is totally foreign to me at this point. But
Okay.
to break it up is like, okay, now I understand that part of it.
See, yeah, it's like when God says something, it's basically eternal unless he changes things somewhere down along the line. And just like when he said, let there be light, and there was light. Well, we still have the light today. When he said, let there be stars, and he created stars. And the galaxies, they're still out there forming themselves right now, even as we speak, because he gave the command. And they're still forming themselves. They haven't stopped. So when he said something, just like I was saying, and I look back upon my life, I'm like, well, there's a lot of things I haven't listened to God about, so I'm one to really talk. So I can't really talk. I'm trying to say I don't have a leg to stand on, but I know enough of the word to know that when God says something, that's exactly what he means. And so I want to. There was something else I wanted to say, but I don't want to do that because I was starting to go down a different rabbit hole. But it's very, very interesting. Anyhow, I want to keep on my subject matter, and that is about these angels and stuff. And people that listen to me are probably wondering, okay, big know-it-all, how does that, and what does that have to do with the cryptids today? And where do these cryptids come from? What are you trying to say? I'm glad you asked that question because I got like, five or 10 more minutes to go here real quickly. I got to wind this thing up. And I want to key on that because that will lead up to part 2.
Yeah.
And that is, how do they link up to these biblical giants and these Nephilim and everything like that? And it's that when These beings, these giants were on the earth. They were very evil and stuff and corrupt. And so they really helped to make the earth really bad and evil. And when God, he looked down on the earth and he saw all this while the Bible says it repented to him that he had made the earth and the animals and whatever. He was like he was saying, man, I'm going to have to start over again. How many of you have ever went to paint a picture and you goofed up right away? Almost on the first or the second stroke, you goofed up. No, please don't get me wrong. God did not goof up. I'm just using that as an analogy.
Right.
He knows exactly what he's doing. And he knew all along what even Adam and Eve were going to do. He knew it all along. So he didn't goof up. But I'm trying to say is because the devil made this little chess move of trying to corrupt the seed of the woman, you see, if he could have the angels contaminate the seed of the woman, he could have blocked. He could have checkmated God in sending forth a savior to save all of humanity.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, are you beginning to connect the dots there now? He's trying to destroy the seed of the woman. If he can destroy it, there's no way the deliverer can come, and he can keep rule of the world. Because remember, he's told of Adam, he can keep rule of the world forever. Because there's nothing, no one could do it except God himself. He was the only one that could come down and shed his blood and redeem man. He's the only one. So if he could stop that, he had him right where he wanted him. And so that's why I believe, and I think most people do, if you ask them, they will tell you that God had to send that flood, not necessarily because man was just evil and wicked. He's evil and wicked today. Where's the flood at, right? Where's the flood? He wanted to wipe them Nephilim off the earth, them the seed of the serpent. He wanted to completely erase the seed of the serpent, scratch the board over, start over brand new. And the only way he could do that, obviously, was to destroy the world. Well, he didn't want to put an end to the world. He just wanted to erase mankind. I'm going to start over. And of course, we know he started over with Noah, his sons, and his sons' wives. So that's what I want people to know before we go into part two. So as we go into part two, I'll real quickly recap part one, so in case somebody missed it. And then I want to start talk about how these things like cryptids, Bigfoot, Mothman, the Chupacabra or something like that over there in Mexico, and we got well, you name some of them. There's probably about 12 or 15 that we can name off real fast. Dwarfs,
Yeah.
evil spirits, things of that nature. And the first thing I want to talk about is what it says in the book of Enoch about how these things, I believe, may have came down. Now, again, it's part of a theory. There's like 7 or 8 or 10 different theories. But this one here, I really strongly believe in it. When I tell people, everyone I told the theory to, they're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. So that's it. But I'm going to save that. I'm not going to tell people that. They're going to have to tune in for part 2 to hear that one.
Yeah, so Amy makes a comment, and to me, that was what I'm guessing is the flood was also to help wipe out the hybrids that were taking place.
Exactly. And that's what these Nephilim were. They were hybrid between supernatural beings and earthly women. So when they had the Nephilim, that's what these Nephilim were. They were a bunch of hybrids. Gotcha. And they were all kinds of different kinds too. When we think of giants, what do you think of? I think of the Jolly Green Giant on the side of the green bean cans. Or I think of Jack and the Beanstalk, and the giant and stuff like that, and the shows we seen when we was a kid about that. I think of them kind of giants, and they may have been that big too. There's room in the Bible talking about that they were as big and tall as the trees of Lebanon. The trees of Lebanon were 50 60 feet tall.
Yeah, the first thing that came when you say giant comes to my mind is David and Goliath.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder how big Goliath.
That's the main one. And they said that Goliath was anywhere between 9 to 13 feet tall. Because there are different measurements that they talk about, a span or a cubit, and depending on where you lived at, that cubit would be a little bit different. So you can't really, get it down to the exact inch. But between 9 and 13, if you're a 9-footer, dude, you're gonna have a height advantage on me.
Yeah. Yeah, I run into a 9-footer out in the woods, and I can tell you, I don't think I would have got him with a rock and a slingshot. That's for sure.
For that young man, if to be able to do what he did, he didn't kill that giant with that rock. He killed that giant with his faith.
Yeah.
Because there's no way anybody with a BB for a brain would have went against a giant that big by his own self. But he wasn't going by his own self. He was going with the help of God Almighty. He knew he helped me kill a lion, and he helped me kill a bear. And guess what? He's going to help me kill this giant who's defying the armies of Israel. He really thought that was a big deal. The rest of the people were going, oh, no. They were scared to death. They was like, where's he at? I'm going at him. And so that's the kind of war. That's the kind of war you want on your team.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we've had a pretty good talk today, haven't we?
I've been absolutely fascinated, and this hour went by way too fast. So, like I said, folks, we're only getting started. So David's going to be back here next week, and we're going to be getting into
some real good stuff. I always
like to know the foundation we've got. You laid a very good foundation, so I cannot hear how this tops off, because now everything kind of makes sense as far as when I hear people.
When you just begin to connect the dots and you find out what's really in there, you're going to be like, oh, now I get it. And that's what we call connecting the dots. There's several dots that the Holy Spirit connected for me when I was writing the book. I'm like, oh my God, I never knew, what I'm saying? How it connected like that. And the revelations that I got, they weren't because I'm a real smart guy, I went through high school and maybe a little bit of college. No, I always tell people, I didn't go to the school of theology. I went to the school of meology. What I learned on my knees and the Holy Spirit speaking to me and helping me, take me from one point to the other point. It wasn't because I was smart, that's for sure.
You were smart enough to know you didn't have the answers, and you knew where to
find them. There you go. Somebody else have a question down there or saying something?
Amy says, believe it or not, I'm dealing with the very topic a lot from a Cherokee perspective and terminology. Daughters of man, immortals, etc., etc. So,
yes,
this has been fascinating. So, I think this, like you said, this is a good point to wrap it up for tonight. And then next week, we pick up part 2. And if need be, we'll go part 3. I mean, you were kind enough to come on. This has been absolutely fascinating. This hour went by way too fast.
Probably because I was running my mouth about my first story.
Like I said, I wanted to talk to you once the internet came around and stuff. I was looking for you for years to try to talk to you in Facebook or something, because that story stood out to me so much.
Someone just told me a couple of days ago, "Hey man, I just saw you on TV." I said, "Well, if it makes you feel a little bit better, they've been running reruns for a long time."
All right, David. Can you wait backstage for me?
Sure.
Okay. Be right back there. What'd you think, everybody? I mean, I'm absolutely fascinated at this point. I'm hooked, and I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to talk to David behind the scenes. I want to get the story just as you do. And I think we're in for quite a ride. It's already been quite enlightening tonight. And so I had no idea where this was going to go. But I am very grateful for David coming on and talking about this, because this is an aspect of Bigfooting where a lot of people will, draw a line and it's woo or this or that. And the fact that David is willing to come out, and has done his due diligence in what he's written, and it's something that he truly believes, is some of the things that convince me. He's not in it to become a millionaire. He's doing it for the same reason I got into this, which is find the truth and maybe spread the truth. And David's done a fantastic job with that. So everybody get ready for part 2. And for right now, from coast to coast and around the world, everybody have a good night, and we will talk to you next week.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No, we're gonna watch and listen.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
No.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, should we run?
Okay. It's a grizzly.
Are you sure it's not a chipmunk? Action. No, I'm out of here. Action.
It's a grizzly.
I'm out of here.
Huh. Maybe it is a chipmunk. It's a grizzly.
Are we gonna die?
I don't know. We're just gonna sit here and listen and watch.
Let's get out of here, maybe.
Fall!